details. Someone like David. As they stood on the stairs of the church together, waiting for instructions on where to go for the photo session, Chelle tugged on David's arm again. He inclined his head to hear her. "Do you have a condom?" she asked softly. His head snapped around, and he met her eyes. "A what?" The photographer asked them to stand and pose. Chelle faced forward with her best photogenic smile and said through her teeth, "You heard me. I don't want to explain myself. Either you have one or you don't. You can give it to me or not, but let's not talk about it." The photographer moved on to take a photo of Melanie with Charles. Chelle shook her head in disappointment. It was probably too much to expect a man like David to have one. Chelle felt something pressed into her hand. She looked down, and a huge smile spread across her face. She tucked the condom into the side of her lace bra, then went up on her tiptoes and gave David a kiss on the cheek. "If I was at all attracted to you—" She stopped herself there when she thought about how that sounded. "You know what I mean." David chuckled. "I do. Just be careful." Chelle glanced over her shoulder and saw Mason watching her from just outside the church door. She turned away with a smile she was sure was even brighter than before. "I don't want to be careful. I want to be spontaneous for once. And tonight I'm going to be." For the next hour, the bridal party was shuffled around the church steps and lawn for individual and group photos. The day was getting warmer, but Chelle didn't mind. She felt like she floated from one shot to the next. All she could think about was the man who looked like he was waiting for her to finish. Near the end of the session, the photographer asked if he could take one more shot of her alone. She posed beside a tree and looked over the photographer's shoulder to see if Mason was still on the church steps. He was. Their eyes met briefly, and Chelle's libido went into overdrive. How could I feel this good when we haven't done more than look at each other? "Have you ever thought of modeling?" the photographer asked. "You have a presence that's truly captivating, an expression that could sell anything. I can't quite describe it, but it's beautiful." "Thank you," Chelle said with a smile that could not be suppressed. Although she dreamed of doing something outside of helping her parents run their ranch, she was realistic about her looks. She also knew exactly what the man could likely see in her eyes. She'd never been as excited about anything as she was about testing whether or not kissing Senator Thorne could possibly feel as good as she imagined. "I have to go." On any other day, Chelle would have played harder to get. She would have pretended not to notice how Mason was watching her, as if she were his prey for the evening. That day, however, she wanted there to be zero chance of him losing interest and moving on. A man that hot could tempt a few of the married women to consider bending their vows a bit, and that was not a risk she was willing to take. She hiked up the bodice of her dress and walked up the church steps to where Mason was standing. She didn't stop until she was about a foot in front of him. Even leaning against the outside wall of the church, he was gloriously tall, which forced her to tip her head back to look up at him. "Hi," she said breathlessly. "My name is Chelle Landon." The smile he gave her had her innards quivering with desire. He straightened, looming even higher above her. She stared into his blue eyes, wondering if there was anything more beautiful on the whole planet. "I know," he said in a deep voice that exceeded her fantasy of how sexy he would sound. He held out his hand. "I'm Mason Thorne." His strong hand swallowed Chelle's small one. That simple touch sent her imagination running with how his hands would feel on other parts of her body. Wow, so this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is desire. She shook his hand forcefully, longer than she meant to, but only realizing it when he looked down at their hands. "Sorry," she said and broke their connection. "We don't get many new people in Fort Mavis."